people around the world are quitting their jobs. Microsoft conducted a survey. It found that 41% of employees worldwide are looking to quit their jobs this year. 20 million Americans have left their jobs since April. Do the math. In Germany, 1/3 of the companies are short of skilled workers. Currently, there are at least 400,000 skilled job vacancies. In India, the attrition rate in the tech sector is up 23%. In Vietnam, many low-paid garment workers have not returned to factories. In the Caribbean, 1 in 6 workers aged 18 to 29 has left the workforce. In China, there's a shortage of workers in the tech sector. In the United States, 4.3 million people quit their jobs in August this year.
4.3 million workers telling their bosses to F off.
More than 25 million people quit their jobs in the first 7 months of this year, and it is now being called the Great Resignation.
Welcome to the Great Resignation,
otherwise known as the Big Quit.
The term was coined by Anthony Klotz. He calls the trend a pandemic epiphany.
Led by millennials.
You don't understand the younger generation. They don't seem to want to work.
I was making over $250,000 as a corporate lawyer, was one of the highest paid lawyers in the world for my age, had spent a decade working hard to get to where I was, and I quit.
You have an engineering degree. You left the corporate consulting world for the gig economy. How come?
Yeah.
Oscar Garcia was a teacher in El Paso, Texas. Teaching online pushed him over the edge too. Kalina Surma quit her job as a patient care director at a New York City hospital in August.
I worked at Google as a software engineer. I quit like mid-November.
So did Minneapolis area digital marketer Mark Sent, data analyst Ricardo Martinez. Like many other millennials, Martinez reassessed his priorities and resigned.
And it's not just millennials.
With how things have worked out for me, I know it's going to work out the same for you.
Alex's dad is switching jobs too.
Librarian Johnson and her husband, a paramedic, decided to quit their jobs earlier than planned for a new life on a farm in upstate New York.
We don't want to do this anymore.
I'm done. I am not working here anymore.
I could not wait for a day to be able to quit nursing.
Does anybody want to work anymore? What happened?
Why are people leaving their jobs?
Why are people awakening from the dream that you have to spend your whole life tyrannized by labor?
Do you think this reality is just fully arbitrary?
Workers like these are quitting their jobs at the highest rate in 20 years. Because for many of us, the pandemic has prompted a professional reassessment.
So, I took another step back, contemplating my existence, leading me to question the career path I took.
It seems the pandemic has led many to rethink what they need and what they want from a job.
All I did was go to work and go home.
But the pandemic is altering this country's obsession with work.
No wonder the Great Resignation is also being called a workers' revolution.
Do you think that it's a post-pandemic hangover?
The psychological impact on individuals, on groups, on organizations, on societies has been huge. And I think that's something that we've universally shared.
The statistics show that
we have associated drudgery with work.
Survival mode. That's about it.
We've made work the proximate cause of our collective unhappiness.
Because of that, they feel emotionally trapped and powerless.
Periodically, people experience shocks that cause them to reconsider how work fits with the rest of their life. All of us for the past 18 months have experienced one of these shocks.
The specific reasons, first and foremost perhaps, burnout.
A survey asked people why they quit their jobs. 40% cited burnout.
So says Harvard Business School's Sidal Neely.
We cannot underestimate the extent to which people have experienced such stress, such anxiety, and a ton of burnout.
I was so tired. You're going to hear that a lot from teachers, how exhausting it is.
It just got to be too much.
You can only take so much of that.
Years ago, I spent the majority of my time just working 16 hours in a row and not taking any days off for months, to the point that I neglected my health. I didn't have enough time to cook healthy foods for myself. I was back to eating crappy foods on a regular basis. I didn't keep up with my exercise routines, and I was sleep deprived. These unhealthy habits not only affected some of my relationships due to the lack of time, but also made me completely drained and burnt out.
44% of American workers reported physical fatigue, a 38% increase since 2019. East Asia, which includes China and Japan, had the highest regional percentage of daily stress.
In China, it's more demanding. People really work for 60 or 70 hours per week.
Karoshi, a Japanese term meaning death by overwork, is, according to the Japanese government, responsible for 200 deaths a year.
And the front lines suffered the most.
It's so distressing. You come to work and you have a skeleton crew, your staffing is at an all-time low. The morale is at an all-time low.
While dealing with a lot of work-related issues like high job strain, demanding duties, low levels of control at work, lack of support, while having a chronic high level of cortisol and emotional exhaustion.
If you had a company with 100 employees and 30 of them quit, the 70 that's left, that increased their workload.
They're going to have more on them physically.
It's traumatic.
You start to feel like you can't provide good patient care and that you're going to make some major mistake or something horrible is going to happen because you don't have the staff and resources you need to do your job properly.
They can barely even get a lunch break. They come to you asking for something and you have nothing to offer them. They feel so undervalued.
Like a mindless money-making machine.
Lousy employer treatment for lousy pay.
Unemployment benefits, check. Inadequate pay, check.
Wages have kind of stayed stagnant. The workload has increased. They want more out of you. Benefits are getting crappier and crappier.
Proportionate salaries and bonus structure.
And that's been happening at a lot of places.
The reason things got shaky had nothing to do with the business model. It had everything to do with the leadership and the culture.
I met countless employees and leaders who are suffering from a toxic and unhealthy working environment.
Just imagine spending 80% of your waking hours being in a toxic work environment, such as clients threatening you, or supervisors or colleagues yelling at you.
They don't work good together as a team.
Are there whispers at the water coolers?
Most employees spend most of their free time using their devices, gossiping, or complaining about almost everything. And genuine human connection among workers rarely exists.
If your manager seems to be oblivious or even worse, aligned with them, then it's time to look elsewhere because you're never going to win in that situation.
Just about all of us have experienced having our ideas shot down or ignored in the workplace.
Most companies and authorities don't give a damn. So I just kept my mouth shut, sighed, and complied for the sake of being a good subordinate within a system.
When it happens, we tend to experience it as an identity threat. When we feel that we don't belong or that we're unimportant, our reaction is to stop caring as much about our work.
People have just left a job because of that.
16% said the previous employer was not supporting their well-being.
Dissatisfaction of working for a bad boss is the #1 motivator to get people to look for other opportunities.
Let's be honest, companies have taken advantage of their people, especially low-level employees.
To maintain being in the business side of things.
Because they could. And they actually had attitudes like, if you don't like it here, get a job somewhere else.
There are some people that rise to leadership positions that have no business being there. They lack the emotional intelligence and they demonstrate poor leadership traits.
And we didn't treat people as human beings, we treated them as line items, disposable line items.
Just being like a robot that is being programmed about what and what not to do based on the authorities' expectations than that of a human being who has the freedom of speech and can be more intentional with actions and choices.
Poor leaders scold you in front of your colleagues. They give you feedback in such a way that makes you just want to quit on the spot.
It was just years and years of abuse and mistreatment. I felt like this wasn't fair to me. I've been working really hard for these people, sacrificing.
All of these are bundled up in a pathological package, which then further diminishes your self-esteem and makes you hate your life and yourself.
But all of this is just half the story. Not everyone is leaving because of unemployment benefits from their government, or because they have to care for a child or an elderly at home, or because their family has relocated during the pandemic. The elephant in the room is work-life balance.
And that balance got more and more and more tipped. And now what we're experiencing is a great correction.
20% spoke about the lack of flexibility.
And they can't get time off.
I realized that being part of an organization can take so much power.
For example, my husband passed away in 2015, and I called and said that I needed a week off, and they told me how inconvenient it was and that it wasn't going to work out.
We thought my daughter had cancer at one point, and I was at work. I couldn't leave. And they were like, oh, well, if you leave, it's going to be a write-up.
And is considered an insubordination in the eyes of a manager.
At that point, I was just like, you know what? I parked my forklift, got off of it. I said, do what you got to do. Left. And then my grandmother passed. And then my grandfather. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Just didn't get to go to my grandpa's funeral.
You see, for years, our lives have revolved around our work. We planned our week based on our work calendar. We met people only over weekends. We socialized only on off days. We skipped weddings for work. We prioritized work meetings over parent-teacher meetings. We compromised on vacations to save on paid leaves. The pandemic has changed all of this. It held up the mirror. It forced people to see the unpredictability of life.
Surrounded by death and illness during the pandemic, Josh, like many, started to feel that life was passing him by.
To reflect on what really matters to them.
Having a sense of purpose.
Many realized it's not work, or at least not their present work.
People awakening from the dream that these systems have the intention or the ability to provide you with any kind of happiness.
I told myself that it's about time to get my act together again if I want to live longer and happier.
All they're going to do is keep you trapped on that hamster wheel as long as you can fulfill your 10, 8, 12-hour obligation to them for the minimum amount they can pay you.
That's a sad truth that most people are just continuing to ignore just so they can keep up with pursuing short-term gratifications, certainty, and comfort for the most part of their lives. I can either continue to keep this job and disregard my personal values, or choose to be publicly humiliated after quitting and get paid 0 to less than my professional income.
Question you may be asking, how can so many people afford to resign?
It's not simply that people are resigning.
Where are they going?
It's more of a turnover situation.
Millions began reimagining their lives. Percentage of LinkedIn members who updated their profiles and found a job has increased 54% year on year. Gen Z switched the most. Their job transition increased 80%. Millennials were next, then Gen X, and finally the boomers. There are currently 10 million job openings in the United States. Germany needs at least 400,000 workers.
People have options. And because they have options, their demands and their interests and their tolerance for things that are not aligned with their values on how they want to live their lives, they're going to leave and they're going to look for it elsewhere.
And start living a more meaningful and truthful existence.
Many quit full-time jobs and began freelancing. They realized they want to spend more time at home or with family. Many turn their hobbies into full-time jobs because why not?
Sam Weston is living off savings as he pursues writing and a freelance career in filmmaking.
And thanks to COVID, says, I don't want to be treated this way, and I'd rather have no job than this job.
Seems like a risky way to stay afloat.
It is risky, but it's better than working for somebody else who doesn't care for your health and well-being and who won't give you a leg up to actually do something that feels meaningful.
It's okay to make less money doing something that you love.
They realize life is too short to stick it out in the wrong career.
That realization is like lifting a heavy weight out of my chest that I had been dragging around for years.
I initially left because I wasn't finding fulfillment from my 9-to-5 job, and I saw that there was so much opportunity outside of the basic 9-to-5 corporate world that I really wanted to get into. It wasn't just that I was overworked and burnt out and all the mental health struggles I was dealing with. It was actually because the job I was in was just not the right one for me.
I asked myself if being a nurse or even being an employee is really the right fit for me. I also asked myself if living from paycheck to paycheck in a job where productivity is being more valued than creativity is really the right path I want to be in for the rest of my life. The clear answer to that is no.
Even if you obviously need money in order to survive, why should you do a job that you don't enjoy? Why should you?
Out of fear of losing comfort, security, and an ideal identity that is being defined based on others' opinions.
Staying in a role that's just not healthy for you is going to affect your time, your money, your career trajectory, and the relationships around you. And if it's the career and not necessarily the company that's causing you the stress, that's an indicator that maybe you need to try something different.
Because the consequence of low job satisfaction makes you more susceptible to mental health issues. And the longer you stay in that job, the worse your mental health gets. I can validate this statement based on my personal experience and observation on others who went through and who are going through this similar situation.
Their burnout might not even be because they're overworked. It might be because they're misaligned in the job that they're in.
I hate my job. I get paid well, and I can take almost unlimited overtime shifts if I want to, which can even make my bank account happy. But having this type of job is really clashing with how I'd like to live my life. And I know that so many people feel the same way to some extent.
People today don't want their lives to revolve around their jobs anymore. They want their jobs to fit into the kind of life they want to live.
I started being brutally honest to myself.
Increasingly, I feel the systems that we live within are unable to meet us where we're at. People, I believe, are starting to think, hold on a minute, I could live an entirely different life. This system isn't working for me.
A system that's designed to make me a living, but not necessarily fulfilling and humanizing.
Van life, stepping outside, communal living, all these things that have long been dismissed are starting to resurge and seem more attractive simply because the systems are crumbling, have become greedy and are unable to keep together a critical mass of people in order to sustain stasis.
After years of looking inward, I realized that seeking the truth and living the life I truly want to live is more important to me than any external rewards to be truly happy.
A parent who's raising a child wants a job where he or she can take time off every day to drop the little one to soccer.
Data analyst Ricardo Martinez simply found a better fit.
I wound up finding a company that said, we understand family comes first.
Nursing supervisor Kalina Surma.
I resigned for a better position in pay and seemingly a better situation with staffing and everything, more control that I'll have over that.
Cleaner Alicia Bowen's sister hooked her up with a much better gig.
She works for a bank and they had a cleaning position open, paying $4 more an hour with the 401k benefits, and I don't have to drive my car.
Alex started looking for a job that wasn't customer-facing.
That's actually a good note.
He got an offer from a local manufacturing company here in Kentucky.
The year the pandemic struck, 1.4 million startups were registered in the US. India added 1,600 startups in the tech sector alone.
Tech worker Mark Sen got a job right away, but like quite a few resigners, he also has entrepreneurial ambitions.
My new role has given me opportunities to work on my startup, make more money, and it's full-time remote, so I'm able to be at home and really invest in my home space.
Josh Hoff quit to start his own business. The former forklift driver recently launching Bourbon City taxi service in Bardstown, Kentucky.
Many locked up their city homes and moved to suburbs. They realized they don't want to wait until retirement for greener pastures.
Librarian Johnson and her husband, a paramedic, decided to quit their jobs earlier than planned for a new life on a farm.
Prior to COVID, fear of the unknown was enough to keep somebody in an okay job. And then COVID happened, and some people were furloughed, some people lost their jobs, some people didn't lose their jobs, but they were filled with fear. And we made it through. And so all of a sudden, the unknown, a lot less scary, because I made it. And so when you give me fine and you offer me unknown, I'll take unknown.
Fears will always exist, but it's all about having the courage to overcome those fears, regardless of any circumstances or outcomes. Because at the end of the day, the most common regrets are not the ones we did, but rather the things we didn't.
It's a legacy of the pandemic. It gave people a newfound respect for themselves and their life.
Living with a meaningful purpose, like having a fulfilling job, often leads to deeper levels of joy and contentment.
Today, I feel liberated. There's so much more to life.
And not feel the need to buy a bigger house or a new car just because your neighbor did.
Because of this, most people just tolerate the life they don't really want to live, just so other people will like them and just fit in.
You don't have to keep up with the Joneses.
Trust me, I bought so many things just to impress my friends, and because I want to fit in and ignore my needs so I can meet others' needs and live up to others' expectations and suppress my own. New clothes, gadgets, shoes, bags, etc. And those indeed impressed my friends and provided me with a short burst of happiness. But after a day or two, I was back to being depressed again, especially after checking my bank account, and especially after realizing that I was simply using the validation from my friends to gratify my desire of being liked for what I have and not for who I am. This misery soon became a bridge to the realization that I was ignoring impermanence and not having enough time to smell the roses.
Don't fear being judged by people just because you don't have that great job title.
Because vulnerability takes courage and humility. So they would rather suppress their real emotions and remain silently in despair. I realized that the need for conditional acceptance is never a good reason to be invisible.
I was scared that I wouldn't qualify for anything else, or scared that it wouldn't work out. I get stuck in this. I feel like I don't deserve any better.
I was scared of wasting money, time, or effort.
Don't look back at the end of your life and see unfulfilled dreams or chances that you didn't take.
I fear regret more than I fear failure.
I decided to have thought patterns that serve me better, rather than just live my life solely around making money, and use my job as a distraction to emotionally numb myself from my desire of escaping the rat race. So I was sweeping all of my dreams under the rug because I was hopeless and so afraid of taking even tiny actions that can incrementally make my dreams turn into realities.
I knew I would regret staying as a corporate lawyer and only helping large, faceless corporations get richer and not helping the actual people who need my help.
Don't be so busy making a living in days that were just wasted away.
I'm sad I got so caught up in this work culture. I will never get those hours back, no matter what I do or what I accomplish for the rest of my life.
I was basically being blinded by my desire to earn more money and disregard my personal values and health.
That you forget to actually make a life.
I forgot that time is the most valuable asset we have.
Because life is so short.
Memento mori is a simple but profound Latin phrase that translates to remember, you must die. I didn't say that to be morbid or sound dramatic, but I said that as a reminder of how short this life really is, and keeping in mind that life is just a temporary experience that most people just overlook. This taught me how to be more grateful, fearless, humble, essentialist, and present among thousands of life lessons.
I know that I've always cared so much about what people thought of me.
The degree of caring and Not caring is, of course, dependent on your self-awareness, values, desires,
just do it!
and willingness to change.
And I've always followed this path of what I thought society wanted me to do.
Just because of the fear of being misunderstood and ridiculed, just to name a couple.
People want you to follow this set path, and there's a lot of pressure to do that. I had so many people tell me I would fail on my own. What I realized is that when you are trying to stray from that path, people will be very vocal about what they think you can't do. They will be quick to tell you that you're going to fail. They'll project their own insecurities onto you.
Others might even think that I'm such an idiot for even trying, because I'm not skilled enough to be successful on YouTube. It's laughable for some people, and that's okay. They're entitled to laugh or react in any way, shape, or form.
But very few people, if any, will be vocal about what they think you can do. Very few people are going to be willing to stand up for you. No one is ever going to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. You have to be your own advocate.
The first step is to overcome that fear by having the right mindset. In fact, I'll make them laugh even more as I upload more videos, because I know that I am pushing myself towards the right direction, even just inch by inch each day. It's a work in progress, and everything is a process. Whether you're trying to lose weight, become an author, play an instrument, and so it's a process to become a successful YouTuber.
I started from $0 in January and wanted to show that making passive income in just a year is possible. So in just this year, I've made over $100,000 from YouTube and built a course to show others the way. And I was in Business Insider, CNBC, US News, and Inc. magazine. So stop doubting yourself. Don't lose sight of your why, and you can absolutely do it. And this next year is all yours for the taking.
I look forward to the day versus dreading going into work, because I don't consider what I do work.
So I think what I did by quitting did myself a favor, big time.
You see, every big event in history has affected our economic decisions. During World War I, when men went to the battlefields to fight, women for the first time entered factories to keep them running. After the Great Depression, people clung on to their jobs. In the mid-90s, they were switching jobs again. After the Great Recession, the trend of sticking to the jobs was back. People wanted a safety net. Then came the pandemic. It gave people another reality check on life.
And I'm glad that some sort of shift is occurring in this area.
So, instead of thinking that life could be worse, start thinking that life could be better across multiple dimensions.
I do know that it's an indication of something psychological and spiritual, not that it's primarily economic.
It made me admit that I'm just one little piece of this huge universe, which allows me to tackle life's priorities over trivialities and take care of my mental and physical health as well.
Those who survive the virus value their lives way too much to compromise.
But this is undoubtedly a kind of turning point, a period of change.
Let's now look at the employers.
Companies that are trying to compel people to get back to the office are getting a lot of resistance. And then there's a rising get paid to don't work movement, getting millions of hits on TikTok and Instagram, calling itself quiet quitting.
I think it is the second phase of the Great Resignation.
The idea being, keep the job but don't work very hard at it.
I was still fulfilling my job duties. I was just taking away that feeling of stress I had after work by
saying no to employers asking to pick up overtime shifts, or
feeling like I needed to put in 1,000%, needed to join trainings and do as much as I possibly could to go up the corporate ladder. That just wasn't my end goal.
I'm not going to try to win Employee of the Month. I'm not trying to get a promotion. I'm not trying to get a raise. I'm just basically like a work zombie here. You're physically coming, clocking in and doing your job, but you're mentally checked out.
I was on autopilot every day, just sleepwalking through life for my survival.
And that's why it's the opposite of hustle culture. And the reasons why people are starting to quiet quit in such great numbers,
I think they're just trying to figure out what that fulfillment looks like outside of work.
Is the same as phase one of the Great Resignation. It all goes back to 2020. So many people who for so long, like had put career and their job at the top of the list, realized how expendable they really were. Ended up non-essential. And this shook a lot of people.
This realization can make you do nothing or something.
This is the longest time they ever got to spend so much time with family, their children, with their spouse, maybe with like other loved ones. A lot of people picked up different activities, different hobbies.
I started learning and doing a bunch of random stuff because I wasn't really sure what could really fulfill me. Even if I've always known that I gravitate towards creative pursuits. So I tried writing a book about how to write a nonfiction book. Yeah, I don't even know if the book makes sense at all, but I learned a lot by writing it. That's all that really matters to me. I also tried learning about Amazon FBA, graphic designs, creating an online course, information technology, coding, and finally discovering my ultimate passion, which is making videos about holistic health. I wouldn't have discovered this if I was so afraid of fucking up. And I mean zillions of times.
I think for the first time in so many people's lives, they actually kind of started doing the things that they want to do in life. People started to realize, oh, this is what life is about. People's just views on life in general and definitely on work kind of shifted. So now when they're back at work, they no longer have this drive to like, work is my life.
And focus on getting fulfillment outside of work.
They're looking out the window, daydreaming, thinking about they can't wait to get off so they can get back to their eBay business, or, you know, hey, it really would be nice to be hanging with my husband right now. Thinking about playing with their kids in the playground.
I could not wait for a day to be able to get out of this job.
We have seen over the years that all these things were already happening.
We've just now given it a label, quiet quitting.
I've heard that on my channel. Many have commented saying, I've done this for years. I did this, back in my 20s or 30s, or I'm still doing this today. They're not doing it because they're lazy and incompetent. They're doing it because they see value in other things in their life besides just going up the corporate ladder.
In China, particularly young people in this case, saying, well, enough is enough. This is not the sort of workplace that we want to enter into.
Is quiet quitting a good thing or a bad thing? Some people I know will be like, quiet quitting is a good thing. Because at least the person's still showing up. At least they're still at work and their job is still getting done. You might think, I'm doing the company a service, continuing to come in. But are you doing yourself a service by continuing to go to a company and to a job that you don't like, that's not fulfilling you? Because you're going to be in a bad mood the whole time. You don't quiet quit and then go to work and be in a good mood. You go to work and then every little thing sets you off even more and you start to do even less. So would it be better to just not go ahead and quit now so someone else who really wants that job or maybe needs that job can take it and save yourself all that mental anguish and anger and aggravation? But then we come back to the reason why a lot of people are quiet quitting and not just quitting. They need the check, need the benefits. Totally understand why you quiet quitting and keep doing it as long as you have to.
But also don't use this as a crutch for yourself. Have goals for yourself.
I use most of my free time working towards my goals.
If you could just find one thing that you do as a passion project and just keep building on it. Just keep watering it, keep adding fertilizer, keep giving it attention, keep giving it focus, and you can escape. You can escape, and you can be self-serving. You could be okay.
That's why I started making videos that contribute to the improvement of mankind, even to a slight degree, each day. And I mean, creating a sense of fulfillment and earn and save money as much as I could. So I decided to be frugal as much as I could, to the point that I even defer buying a car and just bike almost everywhere I go. I also live with roommates and defer purchasing anything that does not serve my survival needs or doesn't provide a significant value to my life. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much you earn, but how much you save. And for me, that's what mindful consumption is mainly about. And I generated over 300,000 Canadian dollars debt-free as of today. I'm not showcasing my wealth to brag about it, but to empower people to be more intentional about their consumption and invest their money and time in something that can snowball their wealth. After doing enough research, of course, you just don't blindly invest in something that you don't fully understand and just let your money disappear, like pouring water in a bucket with a huge hole without even noticing it.
This is what I did because I didn't want to quit my job. I needed to have stability. So I worked in bars. I worked full time in a marketing agency as a marketing manager. I stayed up till 2 a.m. in the mornings, most of my 20s, just trying to make everything work.
And yes, I'm still at my job. Yes, I still go to work. Yes, I still haven't given my resignation letter. But the huge difference between my old and new self is the intensity of relevant actions I consistently take to change what I do for a living, so I can eventually get out of this hole before it gets deeper and deeper the longer I stay, and get older, which would make it a lot harder for me to climb out. In other words, I am more intentional with how I use my time and energy so I can fulfill a much larger purpose that genuinely serve the society at large.
And learning as much as possible, because especially when you're getting into business and it's brand new, you don't know how this world works at all. So you have to stumble a lot and make a lot of mistakes.
Those experiences made me more resilient and not to be so attached to or fixated on any outcomes, because I know that any experiences offer lessons, whether they have positive outcomes or not.
Try to stick as much as possible to those goals, because then you know you're on track and you're not just stretching it out because you have the comfort of your job that you haven't yet quit, and it's just going to keep stretching out and out and out, and then you're never going to make the jump.
But I would say that instead of staying at a job I did not like and just doing the bare minimum, be looking for something new. In the workplace today, there are a lot of good jobs, a lot of good positions in all areas of the ladder and outside the ladder, in all industries, all different levels, with some decent companies.
Some companies are offering higher increments and bonuses. Reports say wages for low-paid workers are rising at the fastest rate since the Great Recession. Some employers are even giving collective holidays. German e-commerce company Zalando, for example. It offered the staff a collective leave. The company shut down its offices in the first week of August so that all employees could take a break. Some companies are giving coupons for food delivery.
Some people got promoted very high very quickly because other people quit.
These benefits are exciting, but if a company is to survive the Great Resignation, it must deep dive into an employee's mind and see what she really wants.
Humans are very complex beings, and not all of us have similar experiences, ways of thinking, childhood traumas, circumstances, background, nationalities, and we also have different journeys.
Every single one of you watching this comes with your own biography, your own life, your own heartbreak, your own hopes and aspirations and dreams.
And companies must realize this. It's time to reimagine work, reimagine office culture, reimagine leadership.
You've not focused on culture and leadership for far too long, and you better fix that.
They have violated the very definition of leadership. They have violated this deep-seated social contract. We know that they allowed their people to be sacrificed so that they could protect their own interests. Or worse, they sacrificed their people to protect their own interests.
Just for the sake of chasing money.
The closest analogy I can give to what a great leader is like being a parent. What makes a great parent? We want to give our child opportunities, education, discipline them when necessary, all so that they can grow up and achieve more than we could for ourselves. Great leaders want exactly the same thing.
We need to continually invite people to speak up at work, because making these invitations just a routine part of how we engage with each other in the workplace actually lays really important groundwork that is needed for those times when people have to speak up and have to be heard on issues that are hard for management to hear.
If you have issues, they will coach you and they will give you support, just like we would with one of our children who happens to come home with a C from school.
Double down on culture and give people a place that they want to go to work, that they feel seen, that they feel heard, that they feel like they have a voice, they feel like their work contributes to something bigger than themselves.
They need to ask questions, they need to invite input, they need to foster creative conflict.
Creating a sense of fulfillment.
We 100% know that if you work out every single day for 20 minutes and eat healthily, 100% of us will get into shape. It's the same in leadership. Leadership is a lifestyle, and the purpose of that lifestyle is to produce teams who take care of each other, who love each other,
and form deep connections.
And feel valued and valuable in the organization where they work. If you do not have trusting teams, what you have is a group of people who show up to work every day who will hide mistakes for fear of getting in trouble. Remember, a trusting team is when people feel safe. It's a trusting team is when people feel they can be vulnerable amongst their own. They can raise their hand and say, I made a mistake. Or you've promoted me to a position where I don't really know what to do. I think I need more training. Or I'm having troubles at home and it's affecting my work. Or I'm scared. Or I need help. Without any fear of humiliation, without any fear of retribution.
We call them leaders because they go first. We call them leaders because they take the risk before anybody else does. We call them leaders because they will choose to sacrifice so that their people may be safe and protected and so their people may gain. And when we do, the natural response is that our people will sacrifice for us. They will give us their blood and sweat and tears to see that their leader's vision comes to life. And when we ask them, why would you do that? Why would you give your blood and sweat and tears for that person? They all say the same thing. Because they would have done it for me. And isn't that the organization we would all like to work in?
Many are grieving. They need to be given a reason to return to work every Monday.
that their energy is not just about helping somebody else make money, but rather they get to share in the joy and the spoils.
Companies must allow people to continue working from home if they want to and not penalize their career growth for it. They must change the hybrid model for good. They must become diverse. And by that I mean not just hire people from different social backgrounds or people who look different. That diversity is needed. They should also look for employees with different needs. If a parent wants to take an hour out every day for his or her child, let them. If someone wants to work from home, let them. Rearrange your human resources in a way that enables flexibility, because today, a paycheck is no longer enough, and companies must realize this.
To break the chain of this losing game.
With many choosing to walk away, even without a safety net.
They just didn't care about me anymore. I had no backup work, nothing, and I quit.
So give them better health policies, come up with better family engagement policies, reward your employees, make them feel valued.
I think it's a huge, huge opportunity for your practice to teach companies how to do that.
And make a positive and sustainable change.
Because if you don't, some other company will. And you will lose out in the race for talent. And I have a question for you. Should you consider quitting too? It's for you to decide what you want to do.
Decide primarily on your own terms, based on your personal values, beliefs, and first-hand experience. There is nothing inherently wrong working a 9-to-5 job. If that's something that you are truly passionate about.
What suits your economic situation? What helps you pay your loans? What helps you support your family? You alone know what works for you. Is it the safety of a 9-to-5 job or the flexibility of freelancing? You see, soul searching is all nice and good, but survival, that's a battle that you alone need to fight.
And if that passion is, of course, legal.
If the company that you're working for is breaking the law, or even worse, asking you to break the law, the first thing you should do is go to your HR department, report it to them, or if you have a legal department, go there. If they still don't react to it, or there's nothing done about it, and you still see the same behavior going on, you need to get out immediately.
So, there's no straightforward answer to what is right for you, or for some people. But in my case, I want to pursue something more creative and fulfilling, like what I'm doing right now, even if that means spending a few hours or minutes each day here and there to propel myself.
So if you're content in your current workplace, if you like what you do, the people you work with, if you have a job that pays your bills, ensures your growth, a job you're happy to return to every Monday, then why fall for the great resignation?
But with really great love and respect, that I want to challenge you to rethink your life. If you're not happy with your job, or your purpose, or your meaning in life, where you dread Mondays and live for the weekends.
I was basically using my rational mind to justify my desire to fit into the confined space, but not necessarily the space that I want to be part of, because I hate the idea of being in a hamster wheel with the lack of power of breaking the monotony at work, while suppressing my desire for creativity. Thriving in life requires chasing fulfillment rather than meaningless existence.
Find another way to make money. It's okay to wake up tomorrow and completely reinvent yourself and become the person that you've always wanted to be. It's never too late to start.
This makes me squeeze in every drop of my limited free time to reanalyze my priorities in life and the quality of decisions I will be making to make this life worth living.
What I want you to think of is this. The majority of our lives will actually be spent at work. But a recent Gallup poll found that 85% of people in America don't enjoy their jobs. And in China and Japan, that number is almost 94%.
Countless people stay in a job they hate just for the sake of fame, money, social status, external pressure, blah blah blah. They're so good at complaining to express their frustration about their situation. Even the so-called successful people hate their job, but most people just don't want to accept it because of their ego and lack of self-awareness due to fixed-mindedness. When we grow old, all the deceptions we've been carrying in years will creep out in the form of regret. At that point, whether we like it or not, it's just too late to turn our lives around, because we won't last nearly as long. So all we can do is to fantasize about the dreams that we can never have.
If you're slaving away for retirement down here, you're missing the point. Because only 82% of people in the world will actually live to the age of 65. And if you get to 65, on average, you only have about 15 more years left to live after you retire. And also, so you know, only 65% of people actually live into the age of 80.
Considering the fact that work consists of a huge chunk of our time, it just makes sense choosing a job or endeavor that is fulfilling and being perfectly fine with some mundane tasks associated with pursuing fulfillment.
Action.
Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
No matter how you make your money, whether you're the CEO of a billion-dollar company or a janitor, we all end up as dust.
If the concept of death and the ticking time bomb don't inspire you enough to do whatever it takes to make this life worth living, whatever that means for you, then I don't know what else could be more motivating than that.
And when you're not working, spend that time with the people that you love.
Because I believe that life is not meant to be taken too seriously. Because while the constant pursuit of achieving goals is critical to someone's progress, being more present is also part of living a good life.
You weren't born to just pay the bills and die. You were born to thrive.
I will not quit, man, I'm on it, honest. I'm gonna launch quick, then I'm gone. It's just a matter of time before I'm over the line and moving under my prime. Just quit my 9 to 5, I'm rocking. They watching, cause it's shocking. Dropping all these top 10 songs, so stopping. It's time to live my life, it's time to live, not die. Wish I could slow down time and just enjoy the climb. Yeah, let's go.